A mountain in West Virginia. Before dawn. A single soldier moves through black timber with a map, a compass, and a rucksack cutting into his shoulders. No radio, no teammate, no voice anywhere in the dark. He has a set of coordinates and a destination he has never seen. He does not know how far it is. He does not know how long he has. Somewhere behind him, a cadre member watches and says nothing. That silence is the test. The man on that mountain is being measured for something the rest of the military spends years training out of a soldier. Welcome to the gate that built Delta Force. If you want the missions, the official record buried, subscribe to War Code. This is one of them. Most people think the hardest selection in the American military is the one that screams at you, the one with the surf and the cold and the instructors in your face. That is a different test for a different kind of man. The screen we are talking about does not scream, whispers. And the thing it hunts for is so specific that a soldier built to dominate a team can walk onto that mountain as the strongest man in the class and still fall, not because he is weak, because he is the wrong shape for the profile. To understand why, you have to go back to 1962 and a single American captain sent to learn from the British. His name was Charles Beckwith, Charlie Beckwith, a Special Forces officer, a Vietnam man, the kind of soldier other soldiers stepped around in a hallway. In 1962, he shipped to England as an exchange officer with the British 22nd Special Air Service Regiment. He stayed through 1963. He commanded a troop. He ran with men who had been doing this since the Second World War, and he watched how the British chose them. What he saw did not look like American selection at all. There was no screaming, there was a map, a mountain in Wales, and a man alone. The British had built their selection in the Brecon Beacons back in 1952, on the worst ground in the country, a long endurance march over a peak called Pen y Fan against a cutoff time the candidate was never told. The whole design punished the individual. There was no team to hide inside. The mountain did not care how strong you were in a pack of men. It cared whether you could keep moving and keep thinking when you were the only man on it. The British were not measuring how loud you could suffer. They were measuring whether you could think when nobody was watching. Beckwith wrote it down. He carried it home. And for the next 15 years, the United States Army told him no. That is the part the recruiting posters leave out. Beckwith came back from England, convinced the army had a hole in it. No unit that could think on its own behind enemy lines. No screen that found the right man instead of the loudest one. He wrote a report. He submitted it. He was a captain, and the Special Forces establishment looked at him and said they already had everything they needed. So he submitted it again and again. Year after year, the same answer. The brass did not want a strange new tribe built on a foreign model. It took terrorism, hostages, and a string of public humiliations on the world stage before anyone in the Pentagon decided Beckwith might have been right all along. On the 19th of November 1977, the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta was given life. Beckwith stood it up with Colonel Thomas Henry. The mission was counterterrorism and hostage rescue, the things the conventional army could not do. But the mission was the easy part. The hard part was the men. Beckwith had watched the British produce what he called soldiers who enjoyed being alone, who could think and operate by themselves, men who were strong-minded and resolute. He wanted that, exactly that, and he refused to take anything less. He told his superiors he needed 2 years to build the unit. He told them he would have to run hundreds of candidates through the ringer to keep a few dozen. The army wanted numbers. Beckwith wanted the right men. He won that fight, and the screen he built is still breaking soldiers today. Here is how it works, and here is why it is so different from anything else in the force. Selection runs about 4 weeks, twice a year, in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. It does not start with a beating. It starts with a road march, then a longer one, 18 miles in the dark with 35 to 40-pound guns on your back. You are issued a point on a map and a time you are not allowed to know. The cadre point you at the woods and step back. You move alone, map and compass, no GPS, reading the ground by yourself. You find your coordinate, and there is a man waiting with another coordinate, and he tells you nothing. He cannot tell you if you are fast. He cannot tell you if you are slow. He cannot tell you if you are even still in the running. He hands you the next point and watches you walk back into the trees, day after day after day. 12, 15, 18 miles of mountain a day. You do not return to a barracks. You do not talk to the other candidates. You may not help them, and they may not help you. The whole thing is built to strip away every external voice until the only thing left guiding you is your own judgment. Now think about what that does to a certain kind of warrior. The man who is built to lead from the front, to set the pace, to drag a team through hell by sheer force of will. That man thrives when there is a team to drag. Put him alone on a mountain with no one to push and no one to push him. And the engine that makes him great has nothing to grip. He starts asking the questions the cadre will never answer. Am I doing this right? Am I behind? Should I push harder or save my legs for the climb I cannot see? The silence eats at him, and every time he second guesses, the clock he cannot see keeps running. The screen is not measuring his strength. It is measuring whether he can be his own commander when there is no commander in sight. If you want the missions, the official record buried, you already know this is one of them. Stay with me, because the part most people never hear comes next. This is where the contrast with the teams becomes honest, and it has nothing to do with one being better than the other. The selection that forges a Navy SEAL is one of the most punishing things a human body endures. It is loud on purpose. Instructors are in your face, daring you to quit, and the surf and the cold and the sand never stop. Hell Week runs about 5.5 days on less than 4 hours of sleep total. It is a furnace, and it is a team furnace. You survive it because the man next to you survives it. You carry the boat together. You suffer together. The bond that comes out of that water is real, and it is earned, and it has won this country some of its hardest fights. That selection produces a specific weapon. A man who can deliver violence in a tight, aggressive, coordinated burst, who will not quit while his swim buddy is still breathing, who overwhelms a problem with controlled fury and numbers. Delta is screening for the opposite instinct. Not a better one, an opposite one. The very thing that makes the teams unbreakable, the refusal to fail in front of your brothers, depends on the brothers being there. Beckwith built a screen with no brothers in it. No surf to share, no instructor to defy, no boat crew to carry. Just a man, a mountain, and a problem he has to solve with the equipment between his own ears. An operator optimized for aggressive team dominance can be the finest soldier on that mountain and still be the wrong fit, because the mountain does not reward dominance. It rewards a quiet, stubborn, self-reliant judgment that keeps making correct decisions when there is nobody to perform for. That is the profile. That is the whole secret. And it is why the loudest, most physical, most team-driven warrior archetype can struggle in a place where the only audience is yourself. The land navigation is not even the final gate. It is the filter. The real test comes after, when the body is wrecked and the mind is raw, because a tired man tells the truth he would never tell rested. Delta knows this. After the marches come the psychologists. Hours of evaluation, batteries of questions, exams designed to find out who you are when you no longer have the energy to pretend. Beckwith wanted to know how a candidate functioned under stress and ambiguity, 2 words that describe every hostage rescue ever attempted. The cadre watch for the man who starts shading the truth as exhaustion sets in, the man who cuts a corner because he assumes no one will know. On that mountain, someone always knows. The whole machine is built to catch the lie a candidate tells when he thinks he is alone. If you have made it this far, you are already one of us. Cadets get every video 24 hours early and a badge in the comments. The link is below. And then comes the room. The commander's board. After weeks of mountain and silence and questioning, a candidate who is still standing is brought before a panel. Instructors, psychologists, and in the early years, Beckwith himself, sitting at the end of the table. This is the gate, the last one. They do not hand you a certificate. They take you apart. They question you, they press you, they bait you, and they watch what you do under that pressure with no rifle to hide behind and no ruck to grind through. Eric Haney, who came through selection in 1978, described facing exactly this. Aggressive questioning meant to crack his composure, and the only correct answer was to hold it. Not to fight back, not to fold. To stay the same steady, self-assured man he had been on the mountain. The board was not looking for the candidate who shouted loudest or backed down softest. It was looking for the man who stayed himself when powerful people were trying to knock him off his center. Think about what that filters out. A man whose confidence is borrowed from his team, from his rank, from the noise around him, has nothing to stand on in that room. Strip away the squad and the surf and the certainty, and what is left is just him. The board exists to see exactly that, the bare man, and to decide whether his judgment is his own, or whether it was always coming from somewhere outside him. You cannot fake your way through. The whole point of the 4 weeks before was to burn the fake out of you, so the board could see what was underneath. And only after that room does the actual training begin. The men who clear the board enter a 6-month operator training course, and this is where the unit builds the operator the public thinks selection produced. Precision marksmanship and instinctive shooting. Close quarters battle, room after room after room. Breaching and demolitions. Hostage rescue drills run live until the movements live in the spine. Tradecraft and advanced driving. Notice the order of it. Delta does not teach a man to shoot and then check whether he can think. They prove he can think alone in the dark first, and only then do they hand him the rifle. The judgment is the prerequisite. Everything else is layered on top of a mind they have already confirmed can hold itself together with no one watching. That is the 70% solution the unit lives by. An operator does not wait for perfect information. He takes the 70% he has, decides, moves, and adapts on the run. You cannot teach a man to do that. You can only find him, and the mountain is where you find him. The numbers tell you how brutal the math is. Haney was one of 12 who passed his selection out of 163 who started. Another early operator, the man who would become Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, made it through after losing 15 pounds in the training that came before. Struggling mentally the entire way, former operators have put the survival rate around 12 to 14 finishers out of a class of roughly 120. That is a single-digit percentage, and here is the part that should stop you. The men who wash out are not the weak ones. They are some of the most capable soldiers in the entire United States military. Rangers, Green Berets, men who have already proven they can do things 99% of people cannot. The screen still cuts most of them, not for lack of toughness, for the wrong kind of toughness. Because that is what Beckwith understood in 1962 that the Army did not understand for 15 years. Toughness has shapes. There is the toughness that gets louder under pressure, that rallies the team, that charges the gun. The Army had plenty of that, and it is priceless, and it wins wars. And there is the toughness that gets quieter under pressure, that goes inward, that keeps solving the problem alone in the dark, with no one to impress and no one to blame. That second kind is rare. It does not show up in a fitness test. It does not show up in a firefight where the adrenaline carries you. It only shows up on a mountain at 3 in the morning when a man has every reason to coast and no way of knowing if coasting will end him. Delta built an entire selection to find that one trait, and they have been finding it for nearly half a century. The unit has worn a lot of names. SAG, the unit, the detachment, D-boys to the men who love them. Tier 1 in the language of JSOC. The public knows the raids and the rescues. The door kicked in on the worst night of a hostage's life. What the public does not know is that the operator on that door was chosen on a silent mountain years before, not for how hard he could hit, but for how well he could think when the hitting was the easy part. The capability that makes Delta what it is was not built in a gym or a kill house. It was built in the screen Beckwith stole from the British and refused to soften. So here is the line that is going to start a fight in the comments, and it should. The hardest thing in special operations is not surviving the surf or the cold or the beating that everyone can see. The hardest thing is being trusted with your own judgment. When there is no one watching and no one to answer to, and having that judgment be right. The teams build the man who will not quit in front of his brothers. Delta builds the man who will not quit when there are no brothers at all. Those are two different kinds of greatness, and the country needs both. But only one of them is screened by a man alone on a mountain, and that is a different thing entirely. Veterans, serious students of these units, you know which of these is harder, and you know it is not a simple answer. Make your case in the comments. Name the trait. Defend it. I want to read the arguments from the men who have actually stood at the bottom of that mountain.